Hello everybody and welcome to my channel, Powerful Perspectives. Welcome to those who haven't been here before. I'm Brandon, and yeah, I have a perspective for you all today about kind of based on a metaphor of swimming. I'm not a super huge swimmer, but I want to kind of talk about just being out in the middle of an open body of water. Okay, so just kind of take this metaphoric, kind of hypothetical trip with me, and see what it kind of speaks to you, what it says to you, what it tells you. Because I think it's something that I've thought about a lot recently that kind of came to me actually as an inspiration. If I remember correctly, this idea or this perspective came to me a little while back. It was while I was praying. So I actually have like a habit of writing down my prayers. Sometimes I find that it helps me to think, especially when I'm trying to listen for the answer. So what I'll do sometimes, and I mean, if you want to try this out, go ahead and try it out. I found it like really helped me in terms of focusing and in terms of really gaining inspiration like from my thoughts, both like when I'm thinking kind of out loud, but also when I'm listening for the response from a higher power. So yeah, I was doing this, and what I received kind of as inspiration, again, from that higher power that I personally call God, what kind of came to me as inspiration in that moment, this happened in a moment where I was just floundering. This is going to be a fun word to translate in other languages when I put it in the subtitles later. It's not a super common word, floundering, but like even in English, it's not a super common word. But basically, what it means is just like kind of flailing. That's also like maybe not the most common word, but like when you're in water, it's kind of when you're like flailing about, like you're not really in control. Your movements, your actions are not calculated so much, and like so you're not really actively or productively keeping yourself, like keeping your head above water, or moving forward if you're trying to like swim towards like a certain place. Floundering is just kind of like struggling struggling in the water, struggling to swim, basically. And yeah, I think one thing that made me think of that word floundering, or kind of that brought up this recurring theme in some elements of my life recently, was a survey actually that was put out by my university. So I recently graduated with my bachelor's, a little bit late in life, to be honest. I lived for 2 years. I did some volunteer work in Hungary, which was really awesome. Great experience. I can talk about that another time. But yeah, I did that before I started my schooling. So like between high school and university. So I started my university a bit late, and I actually kind of changed universities. I transferred universities partway through as well. So the process took a little bit longer. But anyway, so I graduated with my bachelor's about a year and a half ago. Yeah, around there. And after, like, kind of a little while after I had graduated, I don't know if it was a couple of months or something, the university sent out a survey to their recent graduates, asking about kind of where they are in life, just kind of trying to get an idea of where their lives have taken them since graduating. And one of the questions was about like how you felt about your current life circumstances. If you felt like successful, if you felt like you were killing it, you felt like you were doing what you really wanted to do. If you, yeah, like, I mean, they asked exactly like if you were working, if you were in continuing, like if you were taking another degree, or if you were traveling or whatever. Like they kind of, you know, asked for some of that context, and then just asked basically for like a general like emotional response, not response, but like attitude about your current place in life. And it was like, I forget what exactly the options were, but it was like, yeah, like successful, or like, you know, like excited, or like confident about where I am or whatever. And like one of the options was like there might have been like struggling, or like not so sure, like kind of shaky or whatever. And then one of the options was like floundering. And I read that option, and it just I kind of had to chuckle to myself. Not because of how outrageous the idea is, or like how, you know, not because the word was misplaced, or, you know, inappropriate for the context, not at all because of that, but more so because like I read floundering, and I kind of felt a little bit called out by it, or like I was like I resonated with it, at least in that moment in my life at that time. And yeah, I was just overwhelmed with some other things. I mean, like I think the corona like pandemic had already kind of started at that time. I can't remember if I had already applied to my master's program, or if I was in the process of going through applications and everything, but it was just a stressful period of time, and you know, my life was just kind of hectic and all over the place, and so yeah, I felt like I was floundering. And I read that, and I just like, it's one of those times where you're kind of given a word, like life gives you a word, or just like somebody, you know, gives you a word that just really accurately describes how you're feeling when you hadn't really found that word for yourself yet. It's just like, it's just kind of given to you, and you're like, ah, yeah, that's it. So I had one of those moments with the floundering thing, and it just kind of got me thinking, and that thought has kind of come up a few times over the past year and a half, number of months, is just, yeah, what to do when we're floundering, and like how we approach that. So I think of like floundering, like I'm, you know, just again, to go back to the metaphor, out in the middle of an ocean, let's say, like way out there, super deep, you can't touch your feet to the bottom or anything like that. You know, like super deep water. And let's say like you're just kind of treading water, or you're trying to swim or whatever, trying to stay on top. Obviously, if you're that far out in the water, you need to keep your head above water, right? Like that's just basic survival. Because, I mean, not for the whole time, but you need to be able to breathe. And sometimes life is just like a huge storm in the middle of the ocean, with just these gigantic, like gargantuan waves, like, you know, tsunami type waves just crashing. And you see like there are movies like this, you know, with like, you see like movies that have like ships, or like sometimes like big ships, like a cruise ship or something, or like a cargo ship or something. And sometimes those types of ships can have hard enough of a time getting through some of these huge waves that happen out there, like, you know, when there's a really big storm in the middle of the ocean. Those big boats have a hard enough time, you know, like keeping on top of the water and managing those waves. But then you see, like, you know, I'm sure most people have seen some movies like where there's just like a little boat, like just a little boat out in the middle of like the water, and you're just like you're going up and down, like, well, obviously you're going up and down, but like just like you see like the size comparison of like the little boat and like this huge wave. It's just like the boat's nothing, you know, and you're trying to stay on top of the water, and it's scary. And I don't know, like I haven't learned to sail or like a motorboat. Like I don't have any kind of boating license. I mean, I've been on a boat a couple of times, but I don't really know like the techniques about how you manage that, how you manage getting through these kind of waves. But for the sake of the metaphor, I want you to just kind of like imagine that you're not even really in a boat, okay? You're out there, like maybe you, well, let's say they don't have a life jacket, okay? Again, like some details of the metaphor aren't necessarily super important, but like it's kind of the general idea and some of the details that I hope can speak to you. But you're out there in the open water with these huge waves, okay, that are just like crashing over you, like basically like mountains, and you're just getting tossed everywhere and just buried in these waves, okay? Sometimes life can feel like that. Like, I know life can feel like that. My life has felt like that. I don't want to necessarily say more often than not, but a decent amount of time. A decent amount of my life has just felt like buried by waves. And it sucks. Just struggling to get a breath, like just grappling, floundering, you know, just like flailing your arms about, just trying as much as you can to keep your head above water. I think of, I mean, there's a really good song put out by Avril Lavigne recently. It's been a couple years now. But I remember this was after, and I'm sorry, I don't remember exactly which sickness she had, but she was suffering with like a big like medical like issue. Went through this for a while, and like it threatened her life. Like she really had to fight through it. And she eventually like got through it. She beat the illness, and she cut a new record. Well, it's kind of old language maybe, but she put out like a new album, called, I think the album was called Head Above Water. I think it was actually named like after the title of the song, Head Above Water. And yeah, just like the lyrics of that song, like, God, keep my head above water. You know, I can't, like she just talks about like struggling to breathe, like, and it's hard at the bottom, like I get it, and like just, you know, I'm too young to fall asleep. Like, you know, you hear that lyric and it just like just kind of kills you. Pun not so much intended, but like it just really cuts to your heart, or at least it did to mine. Especially given like from what I understand, like the circumstance, like that was like a real lived experience for her. Like that really came from the heart. And I think many of us can feel like that at different times for different reasons. You know, we don't all have the same circumstances, but whatever your circumstances are, like we all have things that just bury us in water and or in crap, or whatever you want to the metaphor to be, but we just feel like it's just piling on, and there's just weight, and it's suffocating, and we're struggling to breathe, struggling to get out of it. And for me, when I think about that, my escape tactic is to kind of try to, like, I mean, obviously we need to get out, right? If you can't breathe, if you're under the water and you need to breathe, you need to get your head out of the water. That's just common sense. That's just survival 101 in the water. You need to get your head out of the water to breathe, so you can stay alive. But what I don't always think about, and I didn't think about until, again, this kind of prayer experience where I was, you know, just kind of listening to inspirations that came, is we have a choice sometimes in how we get out of the water. So what I tend to think of, and this is kind of like my go-to, I guess, I think of trying to get out of the water by going up, like up and out. And I guess that kind of makes sense, you know, like if you're swimming in a pool or something, like up and out is the kind of common sense answer. It's the easy way to get out. Like, but when there's huge waves, like in an ocean or something, up is not always the best way to get out of the middle of a wave. And you can take this from examples like from surfing. Like, and again, I admit, like, I'm not a surfer by any means. I've actually never been surfing. But what I've learned from the little research that I have done, and like from like exposure to, you know, movies like Soul Surfer or whatever, is that like surfers have a tactic about like approaching waves, right? When you're going out into the ocean, you want to get far enough out so that you can catch the waves before they've fallen on top of themselves and kind of like leveled out, you know, and before they're so small. Like by the time that they reach the shore, most of the time, like the waves have died down. And so if you want them to be bigger, you know, something that you can surf on, you need to go a ways out. But of course the waves are coming in while you're doing that, so you have to fight against, I don't know if we can really call that currents. Current kind of think of normally with like a river or something. But like the tide, I don't know if it's necessary. Sorry, I don't know if it's necessarily I mean, it might be the tide as well. Anyway, just the water that's coming in, the water that's coming into to the land. You have to fight against that. And so, yeah, like surfers who are going out onto the water, like there's a number of waves coming the opposite direction, and you're kind of going against the direction of the water, the flow of the water, or I guess the ripple. I don't know if you can really say it's flowing towards shore, but like it's rippling, or it's you know, there's waves that are coming towards the shore, and like surfers, when you come up like across like bigger waves, I mean the waves like start to get, I mean you have like the original ones that are just kind of like barely lapping up against the surfboard, but then once the waves start to become bigger, but they're not quite big enough to where you want to ride them yet, you don't try to go up. The idea, like for attacking that wave, or, you know, handling or dealing with that wave, it's not up and out, it's not up and over, it's under and through. And like you know, like the term that they use for that is duck diving, and I'm not entirely sure if it's like ducking because like you're, you know, ducking down and under, or if it's duck because of like, I don't know, like there's you have to use almost like a frog kick, or like there's like or I don't know if it's a frog kick or like a dolphin kick. Anyway, like you have to do like a certain like maneuver with your legs, you know, while you're going under to help kick yourself, like propel yourself under the wave and up and through. The other under the wave and up out the other side. But yeah, I don't know if it's like, you know, I don't think ducks do that with their legs. I don't think it's like the duck dive term refers to a duck, like the animal. Maybe it does. Maybe it refers more to like the verb of like, you know, ducking down. But anyway, regardless of where the term comes from, it's called duck diving in English. In other languages, I'm not sure. That'll be fun translating that too. But yeah, you go under and through the wave. And this really just kind of changed my whole perspective about challenges and difficulties in life. If we're taking those waves again, like metaphorically, as just as hardships, as challenges, as stressors and crises, maybe even, and yeah, like oftentimes, like our tactic, or at least mine, I recognize this in myself. I try to like get up and out, or like over. I kind of try to like avoid, or go somehow outside of the problem. I try to go around problems instead of going through them. And I wonder if maybe that's not as effective. You know, obviously, like with, you know, there's other metaphors that we can use. You know, some people say like there's a difference between climbing like up and over a mountain, or going like climbing around it, or not climbing, but you know, walking around or going around it. Different approaches to like the same challenge. You know, there's the mountain is there. You have to pass it somehow. But do you pass it by going over, or do you pass it by going around? There's pros and cons, and you know, different consequences to each choice. But I think the same thing like applies, yeah, with waves. If we think of these challenges as waves, do we try to go up and over them? And if so, like, is that really the most effective way? For me in my life recently, I've had to kind of look at that and ask myself those questions, and kind of admit to myself that there's something to it. There's something about going under. Because if you think about, you know, just like the size of the wave, there are a fair number of waves that like are much taller than they are wide, right? Like the depth of the wave, not depth in terms of like vertical depth, but the depth like of how thick or how wide I'm not saying wide in terms of like long, but wide in terms of, you know, yeah. The wave is the shorter distance can sometimes be through. You know, if the wave is higher than it is thick, the shorter distance is to go through. But that doesn't, we don't naturally think of that sometimes. Like, we just think like, I need to get out, and sometimes like we think out is up, you know, because we're under. We're under the water, we're in the water. But I think that's part of it. It's a question of how we think of it, right? We need to think of ourselves as being in the water, yes, and that does mean like that, like there's some on top as well, but we may not be primarily under. I mean, we might be, but we're in the water, and that does mean that some water is on top of us, but the air, the air that's available to us, waiting, you know, to give us life and breath, the closest air might not be above us. It might be in front of us. So take that as some food for thought. See how maybe that applies to your life, and see if maybe there are some areas, some challenges that you're trying to go up and over with, that maybe you're trying to like go around somehow. And maybe ask yourself instead if there might be some value, and not just value, but if it might even be easier and require less work and effort and energy in the long run, to go under and through. It does require some thought. It does go against, I don't want to say it goes against our natures, but it goes against kind of our natural inclination sometimes, you know, and I would say sometimes it's even a little bit of a paradox. Maybe I'll put this in my paradoxes, powerful paradoxes playlist as well, because I think it applies there too. It's a paradox, like, I mean, if you're drowning, basically, if you're underwater, like, to force yourself deeper under, it can seem counterintuitive that, yeah, like the way of avoiding water is like diving deeper into it. But for the short term, like, that actually might be the answer. And you just let the wave then, or like the main energy and force of the wave pass over top of you, instead of trying to fight through it and scrabble over top of it and compete for power. Just let it wash over you. I'm gonna go back to the duck for a second, because oddly enough, I think it applies here. We have a saying in English. It's water off a duck's back. And the idea is that like ducks and like a lot of birds, particularly birds that hang out around the water and who like swim a lot, their feathers, well, I think maybe other birds too that just aren't necessarily water birds, but I think most birds, their feathers are pretty tight together, and so they don't really get wet, in the sense that like water doesn't really penetrate through to their skin or whatever, because their feathers or whatever, like, is just so close together that the water just kind of runs right off of it. And so in English we have this saying, water off a duck's back, and it means like, don't let something affect you. Don't take it personally. Don't let it like sink into your skin or into your heart so much that it really bothers you or affects you or holds you down, or just let it wash off of you. You know, like, let it go. Let it go. Just let go of it, and just let it like brush off of you easily, like water off of a duck's back. And so, yeah, I mean, refers back to the duck dive, maybe. Maybe there's a connection there, who knows. But like with the waves, let the water just like, let it pass over you, maybe. It doesn't mean that we have to duck dive under. And then just let it pass over. Let it pass over. Wow. We could get into like biblical, you know, like Moses, Exodus. We could talk about the Passover too, but this video is already way longer than it needs to be. But I think it's all of these different things are connected, right? So take that for what it's worth. Let me know what you think about it. I would love to hear your thoughts, comments, insights that you get into these themes and questions, and ideas as well. Yeah, enjoy that for today, and I'll see you next time.